flights coming into the country every day. There are 3 flights that are landing in Tel Aviv every day. You can imagine what that means. El Al announced that they're stopping all their flights. And then following the tourism industry, all the small businesses are suffering. Obviously, all the restaurants are closed. All the restaurants are now moved to takeaways, but there's only how much takeaway you could order. And again, when people are laid off, they're not ordering food from outside. They're trying to save as well. And then all the small businesses, there's a joke going on, I'm sure that it's by you as well, that in a few weeks we'll know, all of us, we'll know the real hair color of everyone, because the salons, the hairdressers, all of those are out of business. Excuse me. Schools stopped operating 3 weeks ago, and they just announced yesterday that schools would not resume right after Pesach. Probably will take a few more weeks, if at all. Universities are doing online studies, so pretty much the same by you. I think the only difference by you is that you came to the game a little later. America joined the world, followed the world a little later, and for different reasons. I'm not here to analyze the reasons, but what was already protocol in Israel wasn't actually applied in America. But you see it now, and you feel it now, and you see the GCCs are closed, schools are closed. Israel is a Jewish country, and when rabbis call everyone, the ultra-Orthodox communities, do not pray in minyans. Stay home and pray at home. All synagogues are closed. The doors are closed. It used to be that people had minyans of, obviously a minyan is always 10 people, so 10 people gather at different places. Now that's not allowed anymore. And again, the most ultra-Orthodox rabbi, his name is Rabbi Kanievsky, and he's in Bnei Brak, and he's like the black hat authority. He is the one authority. He said, stay at home and pray at home, daven at home. And that's a big deal in a Jewish country, the first time in our history, I think in the world's history ever, that synagogues are not allowed to open. Weddings are not, it used to be that weddings were allowed to take place when there are 20 people, then it went down to 10 people, and now it's no one. So if a couple insists on getting married now, it's the couple and the rabbi, but that's it. Funerals, you're allowed to have 10 people at a funeral. The same for a brith, you're allowed to have 10 people because you need a minyan. You're still allowed to have demonstrations because we're a democratic country. You can't say that you're not allowed to have them, but no one is doing that right now. So just the morale that, you're not allowed, you can't, I know my nephew is getting married next month. We don't know what's going to happen. I know people that had a wedding and they did it at their backyard, and then people from different balconies joined them and cheered. There was a couple that did their wedding at a supermarket because they, people could still go to shopping. So they did, you saw that. Just, either creative or weird stuff that are happening. And we all see the videos on WhatsApp and we all say, oh, that's funny, that's hilarious. But it's really, really sad. To have all the soldiers in Israel are in their units for an unlimited time. They're not coming home. They're not coming home for 2 reasons. First of all, because they want to keep the soldiers among themselves, so they won't, when they're back home, God forbid, get the virus and then infect their mates. But also because we're now using the soldiers to help the police to enforce the quarantine. So if I want to leave, I live in Modin. If I want to leave now to go to visit my mom in Jerusalem, a police car will stop me at the exit outside on the highway to Jerusalem and say, where are you going? And and if I would have more than 2 people in the car, they will say you're not allowed to have more than 2 people in the car. So it's just, it's a reality. Everybody's talking about the Seder. How are you going to do the Seders? In Israel, just like the rest of the Jewish world, you have very large Seders. We were supposed to be 17 people for the Seder. I have no idea how many we will be. Eventually, all of our daughters were supposed to come. Who knows what's going to happen? So I think, it's the first time in our history that we are just like the rest of the world. And it's really interesting to feel that way. We've never, we were the old, always Israel is attacked. and rockets and terrorism and the rest of the world. I mean, the Jewish community was taking care of us. And now it's the same for the rest of the world. I actually heard earlier today a presentation from someone giving a report about Jewish communities all over the world, and we're doing better. Israel was ranked yesterday as the #1 country in the world where if you have corona, this is where you want to be right now. So there are like different lists, and I'm happy to share that via WhatsApp. I have Kara's and Jeremy WhatsApp. I can send you that list later, but it's really fascinating. There is a huge, there's a rise in the number of applications for Aliyah to Israel from different countries, from North America, but also from Europe, from Arab countries. People are applying to the Jewish Agency. They want to move to Israel now. They feel safer coming to Israel. I'm assuming that these are not people that have never ever thought about making Aliyah. These are probably people that down the road had a plan to move to Israel, and just this is an incentive to move to Israel now. The Israeli government did send some money as gifts, not as loans, to Jewish communities in Europe. I know that Italy was one of the receivers, and then there's some other loans that are giving to Jewish communities. So there are Jewish communities in Europe that were extremely affected and are now reaching out to Israel, please help us, and Israel is doing that. I don't know why the Jewish communities are more affected than other communities. And it's interesting that within Israel, the #1 city with corona is Bnei Brak, which is really shocking. Every third person that was tested for the virus in Bnei Brak was found positive, which is wow. So the physicians in Bnei Brak are saying that Purim was the factor, because people were gathering and they were very close, and they're large families and everybody has like its tribes. So a lot of people got the virus through Purim. And then in the beginning, they just didn't follow the guidelines, and funerals there with hundreds of people, and weddings with hundreds of people. So people just didn't respect the guidelines. Now they are. And that's just another sad side effect, that the ultra-Orthodox community in Israel never enjoyed a lot of positive reputation. Now it's even gotten worse, because a lot of people in Israel are saying, oh, well, look at the ultra-Orthodox, they just didn't care about the guidelines and the rules, and now look what happens. So that's the reality in Israel. Again, it's the same reality as all over the world. It's a sad reality. No one knows what will be. And the funny part, not the funny part, but the interesting part is that we Israelis are not known to be the most disciplined people. We all know the jokes that, when Israeli sees a line, he's looking to where he could cut the line off, et cetera, et cetera. And this is really interesting. Israelis are very disciplined right now. And you didn't see corona parties in Israel like you've seen in Europe, and even in Florida. I heard about corona parties, not in Israel. Israelis were very disciplined. People are keeping, by us, it's 2 meters, and people are very careful about that. People are walking with masks and gloves, and people are not leaving homes. Only those that are essential employees are going to work. So I'm proud of, my people in Israel, that we are disciplined and we do respect the guidelines. The leadership is really, I think that most Israelis would say that they're very proud and happy with the way that Netanyahu is leading this crisis. Probably every other night, Netanyahu is on the news. And you could say a lot of things about Netanyahu, but the one thing that everybody agrees on, he's a great speaker, and he has outstanding leadership skills. You may not like, or I may not like his leadership, his style, and I may not like his vision, but he's a leader, and he knows how to carry a speech. When he stands there in front of the camera and he says, you need to do this, and this is what we're doing, and this is the protocol, people follow. And actually people are waiting for it now. It's like, we have a nickname, it's the Bibi show going on tonight. And people are waiting for the Bibi show, because we feel that he knows what he's doing and we trust him. The Ministry of Health in Israel, together with the Ministry of Defense, are the 2 bodies that are leading the battle here and joining forces. The Ministry of Defense, their job through their different arms is to purchase everything that we need to fight the virus in terms of the most needed thing right now is life support machines. Right now, there's no shortage of life support machine, but we're all saying what's going to be tomorrow when, God forbid, there is a shortage and what we'll do. So two things. First of all, is the Mossad, through who knows how, they were able to get their hands on a few hundreds life support machines that should arrive to Israel shortly. But also, there is a new Israeli invention now that was developed a few days ago that starting next week, they will start to produce our own life support machines. So again, you know, necessity brings some innovation, and this is what happens. There's another company that now started to look into recycle mask, not the paper mask, but the real ones with the most efficient one with filters. That's also some new innovation coming out of this necessity. Two good things happened, which I would like to focus on. The one good thing, you all saw that we have a government. Finally, Blue and White and Likud are agreeing to sit together. Blue and White had to split, and Gantz and Lapid are no longer partners, but that's okay. Gantz will serve second as prime minister. Netanyahu will be there for the first 2 years, and that's what we need. Most Israelis were craving for a united government, and we have that. So that's the only real good thing that came out of this. And unfortunately, we had to go through everything to have a government, but at least the threat of the fourth election in 2 years is gone for now. The second positive thing that we see here is the rise of outstanding, the spirit of volunteerism, the spirit of reaching out to the others. There's so many, and literally I have tears in my eyes when I shared that. My daughter, Karen, knows my youngest daughter, Noah. She's on this list, WhatsApp group that is looking for volunteers to shop for people that are in quarantine or to get medicine for people that are above the age of 60 and they're not allowed to leave their homes. And she says that the second that note on the WhatsApp group goes out, we need someone, there's not even a second passes and someone says, me. It's like, you know, there's like competition, who replies first, because so many people want to help and want to do stuff. So there are all kinds of organizations now, and you know, I did prepare the presentation. There's some beautiful slides, and you see how young people are out there delivering food and medicine and everything needed for a Pesach for people that can't leave their home or not allowed to leave home. A lot of people are volunteering with agriculture because a lot of the farmers had Palestinian workers work for them, and now they're not leaving Gaza and other parts of Judea and Samaria. So a lot of Israelis, young Israelis, are just saying, we're going to volunteer and we're going to supplement the work because agriculture needs to move on. We know that the medical field, nurses and doctors are working around the clock 24/7, and they all have children, and all the children are home because there's no school. So again, there's a whole new initiative of young people that are just volunteering with children and families of people that are just in the hospital and can't be home for their families. So other people are doing that for them. The same goes with people with special needs that when a family has a person, a child with special needs, we know that it's 24/7 around the clock for the family, and now there's no school for them, so there are volunteers there as well. Israeli El Al, for the first time, El Al, Israel's airline, flew to Australia. For the first time, there was a direct flight, and El Al sent out planes to all over the world to bring those backpackers, Israeli backpackers that were stuck in Peru, in Colombia, in Australia, and other parts of the world. They were stuck there. My nephew, my sister's youngest son, was backpacking after the army in Peru. And he was in Costco in Peru, and he was having the time of his life. And my sister said, you have to come back home. And he said, no way, it's wonderful here, no way. You know, If mom tells you have to do something, you have to do it. And then once he already said, okay, I will, Peru decided to close the skies, and there were no flights in and out of Peru. And all those hundreds of Israelis were stuck there in the middle of Peru, knowing that not only they don't have a way out, but there's no guest house in Peru that will be willing to house them. So they're basically in the streets. 2 days later, the Israeli government and El Al and some donors together sponsored planes, back and forth planes that just took all those young backpackers free of charge. No one had to pay anything. They brought them all into Tel Aviv 2 weeks ago, straight to apartments in Tel Aviv where they had to be quarantined for 2 weeks. And then for this Shabbat, they'll all be out. Some of them actually were tested positive for corona, something that they brought with them from Peru. So again, Israelis from all over the world were rescued by El Al and by the government, which is another beautiful thing that you could say. And the last thing that I mentioned earlier is that there are a lot of new innovations coming from the necessity to do something. There's a company in Kiryat Shmona that is working hard on the medicine for and the vaccine for the virus. My personal hope, and this is me being cynical, is that a company that is based in the territories will be the one coming up with the vaccine, because just this is my way to fight BDS back, to say, you see where they developed the vaccine here in the but that's just me personally trying to fight BDS. But there's sort of like a race of who's going to come up with the vaccine, who's going to come up with medicine. A lot of good things are in the news every day about new ideas to solve this. So basically, this is where we're at today. I could send Jeremy the slides. You can see some pictures and images, but we're trying to keep our humor. I don't know if you guys are we're just addicted to WhatsApp in Israel, and people, this is like our WhatsApp is our oxygen. The WhatsApp groups are packed with videos and jokes, and we're fighting this also with humor. And people are at home, and people are bored at home, so they're coming up with new jokes, and it's all passing. So you get the same thing for 10 or 20 different groups, and it's funny. And I believe that this is a great way to fight the virus as well, is just to keep your sense of humor, share, talk about it. There are a lot of new TV shows that are just trying to humor people, offer some relief through that. And I know that everything that I said about volunteerism here and reaching out to the others is happening by you in America, in Jewish communities, and in many other parts of the world as well. And I actually think that that's beautiful, that we're in this together, but we're also fighting it in very similar ways. I will end with, I just heard earlier, I spoke with one of my colleagues from New York on the phone, and her daughter has corona. And I was shocked to find out that the protocol in America is so different from Israel in terms of when you're tested positive, what you're allowed to do, what you're not allowed to do. I understand that in America, at least in New York, 3 days after you don't have any symptoms, you're corona-free. In Israel, it's only after you've been tested twice and it's negative, you're corona-free. So the protocol here is very different, and I'm happy for that, because I think that we are careful. The number of tests per capita is very high in Israel versus other countries in the world, which is also great, and it's growing daily. And the number of people that so far died from the virus are relatively low per capita. Most of them old people with some pre-existing medical issues, but not all of them. We're watching them carefully. We still know their names, and their faces are still online, because thank God the number is low that we could do that. And obviously we care about each and every one of them. So this is, Jeremy, a very brief capture of what's going on in Israel right now, which is similar to the rest of the world. And if you have any questions or comments, I'm happy to address them.
Leah, thank you. I'll open it up if Kara, Dr. Koloff, if either of you want to ask her anything.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question.
Sure.
About a couple of weeks ago, there was a big full-page article in the New York Times about how the infrastructure in Israel is really in very bad shape. As I recall, it emphasized traffic, hospitals, and education. It said that if you live in Petah Tikva and you have to drive a few miles to work, commute a few miles to work, it takes generally several hours. And people, it's frustrating. Or there's a big deficiency of hospitals. It even quoted Lieberman, who said that his mother needed an MRI and they scheduled it for a year in advance. And he said, what good is it? But he didn't comment on what his role as a government official is. And the third one that was even more depressing was that the education system is just getting increasingly worse, and that people are just not getting the education they need to. You don't have a cold, do you?
I do. I do. It's not the virus.
Yeah. So, do you have a comment? I don't know. Did you see the article, or do you see that these things are? And in the end, they said that the political system, the government, just doesn't seem to be focused on these major problems.
So I appreciate your comment, and I'm assuming that your comment is as a response to me saying earlier that, we've never been better. So it's not all gold here, and I'm not trying to sell you something that, you read the newspapers, you know what's going on. Not that everything that is in the New York Times is 100% accurate. The one thing that I did learn in my 53 years is that newspapers are saying part of the truth or not at all. But you're right. Hospitals in Israel, which is, I think, one of the most severe issues, we just don't have enough of them. We have more and more people in Israel coming in either through absorption or other ways, and we don't have enough hospitals. And we know that there's a shortage of beds in hospitals, and we know that the health, you can't say industry, the health field in Israel wasn't prepared for this virus. To start with, every year through the winter, we have people coming to the hospitals for a regular flu and die from a regular flu, just like all over the world. And it wasn't a pretty scene to see people that had to be in bed in the hospital hallway versus having their own room. So the medical system is outstanding in terms of its equipment, the knowledge that physicians, the doctors have, the research coming out of Israel, all that is up here. But the number of beds that a patient needs is down here. And for a person lying in bed in a hallway, the fact that the medicine is so advanced doesn't really matter. They need their privacy and they need to be treated in respect. So there is a gap here, and I agree. And the only way that we could really go about that is just to build more hospitals, which you need more money to do that. And that means that the government, as you mentioned, need to focus on that. And that's why I said earlier that the political system in Israel really, my language, sucks. I mean, the fact that so much money was invested, or not invested, wasted, through the 3 election sessions, a lot of money. Every time that we elect in Israel, it's a day off. It's a sabbatical day. That's how we call it, Yom Shabbaton. No one goes to work. Could you imagine the amount of dollars that are wasted there? So you're right. Traffic, look, yes, it's an issue, but I think traffic is an issue at all big cities around the world. I commute every day from Modi'in to Jerusalem. It takes me an hour each way, and I was driving earlier this week to the office in Jerusalem. It took me 25 minutes. So that's traffic, but we are fighting it. There is now, in Tel Aviv, they're building the new subway system. In Jerusalem, they're expanding the light rail. So traffic is crazy, just like anywhere in the world, because people have more cars, and there's nothing you could do about that. So you just need to improve your public transportation, which we're doing in Israel. It may take more time than it should, but it's at least we're working on it. Education is really interesting, because Israel was ranked among the top countries in the world in terms of where school students were in terms of national exams. And we lost that. We're down now. You could say the reasons are different. The classes are bigger. Teachers are more frustrated because they're getting paid less. And you know, you could come up with many different reasons. So yes, in a way, the education system is not as good as it used to be. But I living in Israel, raising 5 kids in Israel, I can tell you that it's still excellent. And let me tell you, share with you a personal story. My brother has a company. He is a consultant for excellency in academia. He's working with Africa and Asia, universities in Africa and Asia, sort of like a consultant. He's doing a lot of work in Singapore, in Korea, and other parts of the world. He met with the foreign minister in Singapore. And the foreign minister in Singapore said, could you teach us how to excel? And my brother said, seriously, you're asking me? Singapore is #1 in the world in terms of the high schools ranks. I don't know how you call that in Hebrew. There's like a term for that, whatever, but there are different global tests that you give students and you see where they're ranked. And Singapore is always #1. So Singapore is asking us in Israel that we lost our place. You're asking us how to do our education better. And the Singaporean minister said, yes, but we don't have not even one Nobel Prize laureate. So the problem is that in Singapore, the system is teaching the children to repeat what they heard in school. And they're excellent in that. The Israeli system is teaching the children to be creative. Excuse me. Teaching the children to think outside of the box. In a very young age, children in Israel are encouraged to be creative in the way that they're, you know, even using the slide or building towers from sand or whatever. So we lost our #1 position or #2 or 3 or 5, but we're still sort of like a light upon the nations in terms of the creativity that we're encouraging our kids. And there are a lot of outstanding initiatives that high school students in Israel are winning prizes all over the world. There is a company, it's an American company called FIRST. I don't know if you're aware of that. It's acronyms of something, FIRST, and they have a branch in Israel. And the Israelis that are part of this, it's encouraging high school kids in robotics and technology while maintaining their friendship and leadership skills and values. That's the idea here. The Israeli participants in this initiative are winning world prizes. So the education system is not the best, but it's still, I'm very proud of it. And the other thing that I'm very proud of, which is not less important, is that every high school student in Israel, in order for them to be eligible to apply for the matriculation exams, they have to come up with a certain amount of volunteer hours that they complete. You're not eligible to be tested for that if you did not complete your volunteerism. So all high school kids volunteer. Many of them are very active in youth movements, which youth movement by me is not less important than school. So we lost where we were earlier, but we're still doing pretty good. And yes, we could do so much better if Lieberman would focus on doing more for the country versus arguing politics and who's sitting in what government. So I'm sorry for the long answer, but.
Thank you. It was very nice.
Sure.
Anything else?
I just want to say thank you to Leah. As always, you are a wealth of inspiration and information, both. And I love your spirit and wish that you should stay healthy while you're coughing and blowing your nose and all that stuff. And, and that all your family stays healthy.
Thank you. Thank you. Again, I did prepare a whole slideshow with beautiful images and everything, but you know what? A conversation is probably better because it's informal and you don't need to see the pictures. I mean, I think you know the country.
I want to see your slideshow. Send it to me.
I will. It's
Okay.
it's a little heavy, It's a little large, but I'll try. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, Can I ask another question?
Sure.
The whole discovery of oil and the offshore oil, the huge reserves. And I remember hearing once that the money would go toward education in Israel and other things. What's the status of all that?
I can't tell you a lot about that right now. I'm not really sure where the money is going. I know that the person, Tshuva, who was the one leading everything, lost a lot of money. And he's one of the people that was greatly impacted by the virus and the crisis here. So I don't know where this is all going to go.
Uh-huh.
No idea.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Well, Leah, again, thank you. I know how busy we are, and I'm sure you are just as busy. So thank you for taking some time for us, and we appreciate it. It was meaningful. All right,
Stay well,
guys.
be
We will.
healthy. Give my love, Jeremy, back home to your father, and Kara to your entire beautiful family. And Pesach Sameach.
Yeah.